Hey YouTube, it's Robert Hall, and in today's video, we're going over an updated power comparison on all the Godox equipment. If you followed me for a while, then you've probably seen this style of video before. All it is a metered comparison between all the Godox lights that I have available to me. So I did this early last year, I think, maybe late 2017, but since then a lot of new lights have come out, so just more to compare. Definitely getting ridiculous. I think in this video I compared 15 different lights, so lots to go over here, but let me go over my testing methodology first. So since I've been doing these Godox vs Pro photo comparisons this last week, just been testing a lot of different situations in which you can equate the light pattern of different light bulb styles. So for instance, we've got Fresnel heads, we've got the round head, we've got bare bulbs. All of those are a little bit different. They send light in different directions, and the best way that I can put all of these in one test and have them equate is using a reverse modifier and diffusion. That seems to be the only way to constrict these lights to the same light pattern while still kind of evening them out and reducing hot spots as much as possible without going too far to the point that you're just completely ruining the power output of a Fresnel head. So my test for this, it's a 5-foot test using the Sekonic L-858d-u meter, 5 feet away from an indirect softbox with just the outer diffusion. For the indirect softbox, I have the focusing rod at its widest point, so zoomed as far away from the speed ring as possible to the point where all the lights could still fit in there. So the softbox never moves, the meter never moves, and the light position never moves. That's another thing when doing these tests is if I were doing a reverse mount softbox, I have to take that off of every light, which just increases the chances for error. So while testing 15 lights, it's really nice for the softbox to stay in one fixed position. In terms of ambient light, we have the meter pointed away from the one light source in the studio. Other than that, all lights are turned off, so there's no ambient light influencing it. In fact, when I did a meter test at ISO 100, 1/250th of a second, I actually got an underexposed reading for the ambient light, meaning that the meter isn't even being influenced by any light coming in. I've also got this away from any walls that would influence any bounce, and there's nothing obstructing the path between the meter and the modifier. So with all that said, I think I've created an extremely fair test that will represent all of these lights and how they compare to one another. But of course, the lights that use a Fresnel head, if you have them in a typical direct modifier mounted in the back of some type of light, they are going to have a higher output than is reflected in this test. All right, so now on screen you can see all the information that I recorded. Now every time I post one of these videos, people seem to be confused about the fractions. If you're confused about that, go ahead and watch this video in the top right corner. The information is also linked in the description below, as well as posted in my community tab if you want to take a closer look or share it somewhere. I also want to say that there are other lights out there, specifically with the speed lights, that will have identical outputs to these tested. So for the V350, you can also apply that to the Godox TT350. It's simply a AA model, but they have the same max output. The V860, you can apply that to the TT600, the TT685, or the V850 version 2, as those all share the exact same head. Again, we see that the V1 is only 1/10 of a stop more than the V860 version 2. Okay, moving up and looking at the Godox AD200, one interesting thing that I saw here was that the EC200, this was the first time I ever got to test it, was actually 4/10 of a stop less with the same bare bulb than just plugging the bare bulb straight on the AD200. So quite a bit of efficiency loss in that cable. The bare bulb and the Fresnel head were both really close in this test, but the H200R, the round head, because of that heavy diffusion and more even light pattern, that got 0.5 or 0.6 stops less than the other two heads available for the AD200. So unfortunately, if you're trying to jump into that round head to get access to those quick modifiers, it does come with a hefty power loss. The ADB2, again, it always posts really impressive results, more than double what you would get out of a single bare bulb, and that's strictly because of the reflective properties of the backplate. For the bare bulbs, just reflects a little bit more light and kind of fills the softbox with more light. So it's a little bit more efficient of a modifier, which means that when you put 2 bulbs on, instead of getting double the power, you're actually getting 1.3 stops more powerful, which is a nice little bonus and still really respectable. And that's what makes it so close in power to bigger lights like the AD400 Pro or the AD600 Pro. Having that ADB2 with 2 bare bulbs on it at full power is only 4/10 of a stop away from an AD600 Pro. So if you're an AD200 user and you're kind of lusting over that extra power of the AD600 Pro, it's not that much more than just adding a second AD200 and using an ADB2. Between the AD400 Pro and the AD600 Pro, the AD400 Pro is only 0.7 of a stop less than the AD600 Pro. The original AD600 and the AD600 Pro both meter the same output, so nothing to gain there. Now I did take one liberty in this video, and that is with the H1200B. I don't have a second AD600 anymore, so I couldn't meter that, so I'm just inserting the equivalent test result that I got in my last video. But given all my other figures lined up well with previous videos, I thought it was a safe assumption. AD600 Pro extension was a lot more forgiving than the EC200 in terms of efficiency loss. We only lost 0.2 of a stop of power by using the remote head on the AD600 Pro. Finally, the QT600 version 2, same identical output as the AD600 Pro, but a little bit of a surprise here, the QS600II actually measured 1/3 of a stop more powerful than both the AD600 Pro and the QT600 Pro. I don't know why, it's the same output and head style as the QT600II, and they were both in their default modes. No color modes or short flash duration modes or anything like that used, so I'm really not sure why the QS600 metered more powerful, but it did. Alright, I'm not going to make any additional statements or conclusions from this. This is merely a resource for you guys, that way you can decide which light is most suitable for your needs. Give it a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you want to see more, and until next time, keep on shooting.